Hello everyone, welcome back to Sports Kabaddi. I'm Rahul. With me is Anshuman, and Anshuman, we're here to review the Premier League season 2023-24 season. It's just come to an end. It went till the last day as far as the title race is concerned, at least Manchester City and Arsenal fighting it out. But in the end, it was, I think, the favourites. Was City always the favourites for you? They eventually won it. But there was probably a point where they didn't look favourites, or did you always consider them to be favourites no matter what the situation was?
I think we have to consider them favorites because of recent history. I think they have gotten used to win it by now. And the thing with City is that it always feels like they are ungettable, that no one can reach them. But the thing has always been that City always start their season very slowly, relatively slowly. And then they pick up pace in the second half, tiring out. So that's sort of a the double whammy, because physically you are starting to tire, so the drop points start coming up. And even if you are facing middle teams or lower table teams, they have much more to play for because someone's fighting for relegation, someone's fighting for European place. So the becomes more and more tough for teams going forward as the season progresses, and that's when City kick in. So I think Liverpool showed us 4 years ago that the way you kill off City is by going near perfect. And that's what we have seen. That the standards that the Guardiola cities have set are so high that it's very, very hard for any team to get them. They are gettable, but it's very hard. Like even 10, 15 years ago, 25 to 30 points a team could afford to lose and still win the league. That is no longer the case. You could 15 and 20 points. That is the minimum. Like we have seen Liverpool uh, do 97 points and still not win the league. I think a couple of seasons ago they did 92 points and still did not win the league. That is the standards that we're talking about. Arsenal even this season 89 points haven't won the league. So City don't give you that much room anymore. So it's very frustrating, and City fans will not like this. But if you are from any kind of neutral point of view, if you're looking at this, it's boring because of the mechanization that comes about because of the
Yeah.
entire city system. But yeah, as a United fan, as a neutral, I would say that I would have taken a different winner because I like that level of jeopardy, like seeing different winners year in, year out. But yeah, you have to give it to them. They are worthy winners. As much as Arsenal are worthy to be right up there, City took it to the final days and they delivered it. So yeah, they have to be
I
considered
can,
favorites for
yeah.
not only for the past 3, 4 seasons, but also going forward as well, as long as Guardiola is there.
Right, I completely get it. I think the it sort of becomes repetitive and it becomes very almost robotic and very mechanical in the sense that they just keep doing it and it's just become like one boring process. But yeah, it would be nice. I mean, hopefully, if something different happens next year, or even Manchester United win the FA Cup, I think would give some change, and it would be nice to see City not win. I don't know, a bunch of
I mean,
trophies in the same year at least.
I'm not hoping out for it. Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for something like that to happen. But yeah, it would be
Okay.
quite the underdog story if United were to beat City this weekend.
Yeah, true, true. Anshuman, let's quickly talk about Arsenal as well because I think this Mikel Arteta's Arsenal is different. He's done a lot of things right, and um, a lot of people sort of were talking about this striker situation at Arsenal at a point in time because Gabriel Jesus was injured. He wasn't even when he was fit. I don't think he was the goal scorer for Arsenal. He scored what 4 goals, league goals in the entire campaign. But then he got Kai Havertz in, who scored a few goals, 13 goals in the league this year. Do you still think that's where Arsenal lost the league? Just they didn't have an out and out number 9 because Kai Havertz also missed his fair share of chances.
I think when you lose a league by like a singular point, you can come up with a variety of reasons as to why this didn't work out or that didn't work out. A lot of it is happenstance. We just don't like to believe it's happenstance because we always want to try to find concrete answers as to this is where they lost the league. I don't think such an answer actually exists. I do believe that out and out striker that guarantees you a minimum amount of goals would help them, even if they have to bring someone in that does not immediately fit their system. I would take the example of Erling Haaland, who I would say is not a Guardiola player, not at all. But having him in the side has made it slightly easier on the rest of the City squad because they know that as long as they are creating chances, they have a serial converter in there. And he does not need to play that role every single time, but it's good to have someone who is that uh, consistent with that one aspect of his game, which is conversion. So I do think that as that is one profile of player that Arsenal lack. I think Havertz has been fantastic. I like the redemption arc that he's been on. And even when you think about the forward role he's been playing, it is a bit of an unconventional one at the end of the day because there is a lot of movement going forward. And
Mm.
I think there are options out there in Ollie Watkins and even Tony who have performed at this level, who have established themselves as serial converters over a 50-60 game campaign. So I think having them would be a much better option for them for Arsenal than not have someone like that. Of course, goals can come around from all over the place as they do for City, but having that kind of player only strengthens your squad furthermore. It wouldn't hurt essentially. So I would say that Arsenal should definitely go for someone like that, and I think someone like Tony would be very gettable. Watkins would be lovely because he comes from a family of Arsenal fans, so that would be an interesting thing. But yeah, having someone who guarantees you sort of 50 to 20 goals in the league, I think that is something that will only bolster Arsenal, and I cannot see this Arsenal side messing up anytime soon because
Okay.
for them to be able to spend 100 million on someone like Declan Rice and then integrate him into squad in such a way that that price tag never even is brought up. That's how seamless his integration has been. So Arsenal's recent history with the kind of players they are getting as well, that they are targeting and then getting, it's quite decent. So I would say that if they are on the market to look for a sure shot striker who can guarantee them a bit of goals, I think they'll hit the mark again, and that will only make them stronger going forward. So yeah,
Okay.
that would be that.
Yeah, I agree as well, Anshuman. I think probably that just having that option is great. I think for an Arsenal team, and there's a lot of talk right now about Mikel Arteta's contract. Arteta's contract's up in 2025. We don't know if he's going to extend. There's rumors that he could potentially be going after his contract runs out. In the long term, do you think this could be a problem for Arsenal, or do you think Arteta is going to stay? Although there are reports that say otherwise.
I think we have to take into account Arteta's upward trajectory because I remember at the end of the 2021-22 season, when Arsenal had finished just outside the Champions League places, people were still questioning, okay, what's the point of Arteta? He seems to be all we are always talking this idea of process, but Arsenal are still not in the Champions League. Here we said 2 seasons down the line, Arsenal have made back-to-back Champions League. They have pushed City all the way, and the detractors are still there. They're still saying that okay, Arteta still hasn't delivered anything in the league, so what's the point? But there is a nuanced argument that needs to be taken into account that the way in which Arteta has improved Arsenal, it's the way Arsenal have come leaps and bounds is exemplary, and he is being looked at as a process manager, as a manager with ideas, as a manager who can rally a team around him, with by big teams all over the place. I think Barca have been linked with that has quite a few foundations for it to work as well. But there are a few the ifs and buts there as well. But the point is that Arteta is a manager who is being regarded highly outside of England as well. So I think the setup that Arsenal are going for, and I think any modern team should go for, is that you should never have a manager in place so metronomic that you are not able to replace them. Arsenal know this better than most else because of the experience they have had with Wenger. United obviously know this with uh, uh, Sir Alex Ferguson. And Liverpool will try to avoid this now that Klopp's gone and Arne Slot has come in. So you need to have a system in place where a manager can go, whether you are letting them go as a club or you have chosen to let them go and let someone else come in. So this could become a bit of a tricky problem, but I think the way Arsenal have gone about said resetting their hierarchy in recent years, I think they would have a plan in place. I would be very surprised if Arsenal do not have a contingency plan in place if something happens with Arteta, if he
Mhm.
leaves at the end of next season, or even if he, for whatever reason, if he's able to. But I think right now, given the age Arteta is at, and the fact that Arsenal have continued to just become stronger and stronger under his guidance, I would be very surprised if a contract extension is not offered. Whether he takes it or not is a different thing.
Yeah,
but I think Arsenal will at least offer him an extension.
Yeah, I think the fear around the Arsenal fan base is Arteta not accepting the extension. I think there is most people expect him to be offered on, and yeah, we'll have to wait and watch, I guess. But yeah, Anshuman, moving to the next segment of this conversation, which is uh, it's so hard to pick a player of the season because it again depends on what you're looking at, who your favorite players are in general. I think I'm someone who genuinely loves midfielders, and I would probably pick a midfielder, and you'd be someone who'd pick probably somebody else. So, anyways, I'll still put the question to you: who has your player of the season? There's been a lot of conversation about Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, Rodri, all these guys, the usual suspects. But who has it been for you?
I mean, I have said this before, and I will continue saying it again every time I have to deal with this question. But it is an inevitable question because that is the realm that we are in of football. Right? So, yeah, the discussion of any individual players in a team sport is functionally pointless, not meaningless, but it is like it doesn't really make sense regardless of whether you give it to Messi or you give it to Loris Karius. So yeah, but I would be very hard pressed to go against the choice for the player of the season anyway, because City have this thing, and that is the mark of a great team full of great players. That every few seasons, even in the narrative, regardless of whether the numbers speak for them or not, comes into your mind immediately when you think about delivering that role in different parts of the season. These are the players that have been there for a while. So over the past couple of seasons, you have seen Gundogan stepping up into the play and becoming the central figure, where he just comes up in important matches and delivers not only just goals, but in the performances that he plays from the number six role. Then Kevin De Bruyne every once in a while pops up as that one of those "I'm him" performances, where he just says, "This is my day. I'm just delivering all over the place. I'm not listening to the opposition. I'm not listening to Guardiola. I'm just going to do my thing, and no one else can do anything about it." So I think this really has been Phil Foden's season, not just because of the last week's performance, but this is really because we have seen Foden essentially for the past 6, 7 seasons, and he's still just about turning 24, and I think that is remarkable. The way that his transition into the senior setup was handled with a bit more delicacy, because the way things happened with Jadon Sancho, because he left to find himself to find that next step in a different place, which is why people were even more particular about Guardiola taking care of Foden, and he has, because the way he has developed Foden into one of the best midfielders in the world is remarkable, and he is now one of the best midfielders in the world. And this season, he has been that City player that has stepped up in big moments, including the one we see last week. And so yeah, if I have to pick one, I have to go with the ones that have actually gone on and done the day, and it has to be Phil Foden for me. Who will it be for you? Like, would you go with that argument that okay, if City have won it, it needs to go with them, or would you pick someone from Arsenal?
I would actually pick someone from Arsenal, not because I think they have been the best player, but just because you end up watching. I think for me, when I watch Arsenal, I watch Arsenal from a different lens, and I'm trying to basically, I don't know, I'm looking at every movement, pretty much everything that every player does, right? And then when I sit back to watch another game, I don't think it's as detailed. It's more like kick back, just enjoy the football, and that's about it. But I think with your own team, you want to really be critical, see what every player is doing, and for that reason, I just can't look beyond Declan Rice. I didn't know how good a footballer Declan Rice was until he came to Arsenal. Have to admit it. Had no idea. And then he came in and just everything about him. He can recover the ball. He can win tackles. He can win headers. He can score goals. He can assist goals. He can carry the ball. I think one thing that people realize that Declan Rice can do very well, at least with Arsenal now, is that he can carry the ball so well on that left hand side. We've seen it a lot this season, and quite effortlessly. He's got long strides, and yeah, there's a lot to love about Declan Rice, and I think he's changed the way Arsenal. I just feel like he's given Arsenal a bit more courage that probably we didn't have last year. I think that's what's changed, and for me, it would be Declan Rice because I just can't look beyond him and the impact that he's had for Arsenal at least. So I think that's why it's very difficult again for me to consider a Manchester City player or even Ollie Watkins for that matter for Aston Villa, because you just don't watch them in the same way that you watch your team play, I guess. So yeah, for me
Hmm.
it's that. But yeah, Anshuman, they've three teams relegated, like always. Luton down, Burnley and Sheffield United. I was really, really sad to see Luton go down because I think they were one of those.
Hmm.
I don't know. They just brought something different to the Premier League. Did you expect these three teams to go down at the beginning of the season? And knowing that these three teams are going down, are you sad that either of them are?
Um, I think I did expect this was one of those seasons where you saw the teams come up. You thought, yeah, these if these three were to go down immediately, you wouldn't be surprised because
Yeah,
the my issue with Burnley playing good football and everyone praised their good football last season was that it's all fun and games to play with good football against sides who are not as good as the ones you're going to face in the Premier League. Because when you are playing with a particular style of football, you try to stick to it and then you generate that beautiful football. It's all well and good when the things are going your way, but when you take that level up, you need to have a bit of pragmatism about you. You need to have a plan in place for what happens when that football does not click, when the teams that are coming against you are so much better in their intensity, in their concentration, that you are not able to find that game on the pitch. So what do you do when your plan A does not work? Burnley did not have an answer for that, which is why multiple times we have seen that teams that are much more pragmatic, that sort of comes through the playoffs as well, they are much better equipped to deal with the Premier League because they are ready to deal with the possibility that okay, we have played teams that were not as that were better than us in the championship itself, and we had to set up pragmatically. So that is we have that experience, so we'll give that a go in the Premier League as well. So sometimes you have games in which you are able to eke out points in which you wouldn't have expected, and we saw that with Luton Town because I think many people are sad to see them go down because it's the underdog nature of their story. Because Burnley have been in the Premier League for a while, Sheffield United
yeah,
up until when they had 2 seasons, and with Chris Wilder himself, they almost went to Europe in that first year. So we have seen them recently, but with Luton Town, you look at the stadium that they have, uh, that small town aspect. It's a bit endearing. The fact that you enter through someone's back garden
yeah,
into the main stadium, which is now a Premier League stadium, which at the start of the season was uh, good enough to actually uh, to have a Premier League game, so they had to delay their home games as well. So I think that was one of a underdog story that everyone wanted to really cheer for. And but yeah, at the end of the day, people are not. I don't think anyone is surprised that these three are the teams that have gone down. I think there is a lot of goodwill associated with Luton. The one only hopes that they don't take any trigger happy decisions and then they just stick with Luke Edwards and they make sure that Rob Edwards, sorry, and they stick with him
Robert.
and then they work with him in the championship and let's hope that they come back with a better chance the season after. But yeah,
Yeah,
no surprises that this is the season that they have gone down. Even with, I think 26 points is what Luton have accrued this season, and for
yeah,
Nottingham Forest at 32 points,
yeah,
even take into account the point deduction, that is too low a points tally to be able to get away with. So it's been one of those seasons where the difference of level, the financial disparity that which has then brought about the difference between the levels of Premier League and the Football League has been on full display this season. The teams that are coming on from the Championship next season, I think apart from Ipswich Town, we are getting the old boys back who have been in the league recently as well. So it makes sense for them to be likely to be coming back. So I don't think we'll see that to this extent next season, but this season has been
okay,
particularly interesting in that regard. So yeah, it's not a surprise that these teams have gone down. It will not be very surprising to see most of these teams come back up again, especially Burnley, because they're sticking with company who's been recently linked with Bayern Munich of all places. But yeah, if he sticks around, I think Burnley have a plan in place to come back quicker than the rest of the team.
okay, okay. There's another story at the top of the table. Of course, I think everybody's loved the Luton Town story. Sad to see them go down, but a lot of people have loved to see the Aston Villa story as well. Now
Yeah,
they made Champions League football, and it's wonderful. Unai Emery proving his worth in the Premier League after not a great spell with Arsenal. So, uh, Anshuman, what have you made of it? Is it only down to Aston Villa playing really good football, or is it also down to the likes of Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester United, Chelsea are even underperforming around them?
I think it's both of those things because when you look at Villa's recent performances, I think you realize that they had completely gone out of steam. I mean, they have ended the season with a 5-0 defeat to a Crystal Palace team that is, yes, they are on the up and they are very much in a feel good place. But still, for a team to end up with Champions League football and go down to it's a bit worrying. But okay, that's the result. Villa will be more than willing just after achieving after returning to the
Yeah,
to the Champions League after decades essentially. I don't think it's been talked about enough. I think people have given Miri his flowers, but I don't think he's been praised enough because I remember clear as day the amount of things he was lambasted with when he was at Arsenal. Now,
yeah,
understandable, that's a big club, so any manager that does not do big well at a big club is going to get lambasted. Pep Guardiola, after everything he's achieved, the moment he stops, he goes 5 games without a win, he immediately becomes a fraud. So that is the reactionary football ecosystem we are a part of. So it wasn't surprising, but it was still very disheartening to see that this manager, his entire credentials were being thrown out of the window because he couldn't speak in a fourth and fifth language. So that I'm really happy that he got that chance. The fact that us Aston Villa uh, were having to deal with the prospect of relegation last season when things that started with Steven Gerrard. And within 2 seasons' time, Emery has delivered them Champions League. Okay, you can always talk about that. City, Spurs weren't that good. Chelsea won that good. United won that good. But you can say that about any team that succeeds in any season. So that is a bit of an argument that doesn't really go anywhere. You have to deal with what you have in front of you, and Villa have because any team could have taken that chance. Why did it have to be Villa, a team that have not finished for fourth for such a long time? So yeah, I don't think Emery has received enough credit. These bunch of us, Villa players, a fair few of whom have been there since the championship days. I think John McGinn is finally going to be in the Champions League. I think he's deserved to be there for a while. This is a very exciting bunch of players. I really hope to see Ollie Watkins continue at Villa at least another season. Now that they are in the Champions League, it's highly unlikely that he would, but I would really like to see him because I think he has been amazing, one of the best players this season in terms of converting goals, assisting goals. So he's been right up there, and I'm really happy for a lot of these players who are now being regarded as good, competent players at the top level because Aston Villa have made a Champions League. All
yeah,
the luck for Emery because I think he deserved this after the way he was essentially shooed away from Arsenal. And so I'm really happy that he's gotten it, and I hope that he gets to move on because inevitably he will. Villa have given him a contract extension, and I think uh, Onstein said this that Villa consider him to be their version of Sir Alex Ferguson. Now, there are a lot of reasons for which that will never happen, and I will not go into those details right now. But yeah, I think great job Emery has done, and I think this essentially resuscitates his reputation in English football at top level. And I really can't wait to see how they fare in the Champions League next season because it could go either way. Things could really pick up. It could be a disaster because we have seen teams have a hard time dealing with European football. Brighton are an example this season. Things have been quite middling for them. But I really want to see how Villa move on from this season because they'll be losing a fair few players. It will be interesting to see how they replace them, who they replace them with, and how they go about next season. Now they have Champions League football. I don't expect people to. I don't personally expect them to be able to mount such a challenge again because the teams that have finished below them are looking quite eager to build stronger. But again, you never know. They have done it this season. We don't really know what can happen next season. I'm not expecting it,
yeah.
but I'll be pleasantly surprised if something happens. But I really do want to see how they fare in the Champions League, especially with the new format of the Champions League coming next season.
Yep. Anshuman, again, quick word on Chelsea and Manchester United as well. I think probably um, I don't know what to say about Chelsea in the end. Probably you can throw some light on what has happened with Chelsea this season. And Manchester United, of course, I think you're probably the right person to be asking this question to. What is up with Manchester United? Where are they at this moment in time?
So yeah, let's start with Chelsea. That will be the easier thing to do. I think the moment Todd Bowley and co arrived, we had this discussion. I think with Shashwat as well. When I think it was the two of us and Shashwat. So we had the discussion with them as well, and I said at the same time at the time, Chelsea are going after the right people as well as for managers, for players. They are going after the right people, and okay, they are showing their intent by spending all this money, but they are trying to sign too many players at the same time. They are trying to change too many things, and that just does not work. There are some things that you cannot buy, and I think that is part of it. You have to give things time, because for players to be able to develop relationships on the pitch and off the pitch, that is an organic process that you simply cannot microwave. That is a term I come back to every time when I talk about Chelsea, because they've been trying to sign 10, 20 players, dispatch 10, 20 players after every season. You can't really do that. What we have seen in the end of this, in the final 2 months, is that Chelsea, having been allowed to just continue. Like, there was a lot of talk about Pochettino not lasting the season. The way they dealt with Tuchel and Potter last season, I think one could have expected. One would not have been surprised to see Poch get sacked. But I'm glad that they haven't. I'm glad that they are stuck with him, because in the past 2 months we are seeing exactly what Chelsea have needed. Having bought all these players, having bought a good manager, having bought good players that fit his system, is that the players have started to click. Pattern has started to emerge. There are the favorites in Pochettino system that we are beginning to see. Okay, he's favoring these players over these. A starting 11 has started to emerge. There are players who are able to now essentially recognize each other and play with each other, understanding those organic relationships, being able to play them out on the pitch. That thing takes time. You cannot buy. We cannot really play FIFA in real life as much as we wanted to, as much as we would want to. So the only thing I would say with Chelsea is that let this thing grow. Do not undo a lot of this progress by again selling 15 players and buying 15 players. I don't think that would work. I think they would want to buy two, three players, and if they are going to flex their financial muscles by spending triple figure sums on those three players, fine, go ahead, do it if you can. But don't buy too many players again. Let him do his thing, give him another preseason, and just assimilate few players to what is now already starting to become a set score. So that would be my take on Chelsea. It's been exciting. I think I was almost hoping in the going into the last week of the season that they might end up top five, which would have been very funny and remarkable in many ways. But yeah, that's what my take on Chelsea is. They have the right people on board. They just need to be a bit more prudent, show a bit more patience going forward, and just try to hold your try to hold back on that retail therapy thing. Don't buy too many things at the same time. That's all I would say.
Yeah,
United,
yeah,
it's a bit hard because I think from very high level pundits, very good football analysts and fans alike are not quite able to understand what United are trying to go for, especially Eric Ten Hag, because the United men's women's team recently won the FA Cup. So I don't think I'm going to go after them that much. They are doing their bit. The men's side on the end is a car crash, as it always tends to be at 2, 3 seasons. Whatever the thing is, whatever Ten Hag was doing last year, it made sense. At least from the outside, it made tactical sense. Okay, you have the first two matches against Brighton and Brentford, you lose them badly. So you have a very pragmatic counter-attacking setup going in the game against Liverpool. That made sense. The players you picked for them, that made sense. This season has just not been their way. Okay, we can say that you have a lot of injuries, and injuries have inevitably played a part. United could have gotten a bit more. They hadn't had all those injuries, but at the same time, you are making tactical calls that just don't make sense. Like, you are getting a midfield that is better equipped for counter-attacking setup, but then you are providing a base in terms of providing a defensive base for that midfield. You are picking up players who are better suited to a possession-based setup. So you are actively undercutting your own ideas that you're going to trying to go for. So it doesn't really help anyone. And Ten Hag has neither been able to explain that. And when he comes out, he says things like, "Oh, I'm seeing great performances. We are one of the most exciting teams in the league." Yeah, you are one of the most exciting teams in the league for the completely wrong reasons. This is a car crash of a team, and which is why everyone else is enjoying it. So you are taking the completely wrong sense with it. And I'm not really sure what exactly Ten Hag is trying to go for. I think a few months ago he came out and said, "I cannot play the Ajax style of football here," which is fine if that is what the club knew going in, because everyone at the beginning thought that, okay, this is a very sophisticated manager who will establish a position-based setup at the club. So for everyone who thought that way, listening to this, it's a bit gutting. If it would feel even a bit like betrayal, but I'm completely on board if Ten Hag says, okay, that was Ajax, so I played possession-based football. This is United, so I'll play counter-attacking football. Fine, if you want to do that, then pick up players in a way that would make sense for counter-attacking football, and no, don't set up your team that can play neither counter-attacking and not nor possession-based football, because if from the outside it doesn't make sense. I don't even know if it is making sense to him. Maybe he's coming out and in the press conferences and saying that, oh no, I can see that we are making progress just to bat off the media, which would be fine. But if he's genuinely believing this, then it's very worrying. So I think, given the
Okay.
kind of football, again, I'll come back to the football ecosystem that we are in. We are in a highly reactionary ecosystem. So, if 5 matches a team goes without winning, immediately the manager becomes fraud. And because there is so many question marks about what Ten Hag is trying to do, there's so much confusion. It would be very understandable. No one would be surprised if United came out and said, "Okay, we are sacking Ten Hag and come bring
Yeah.
in a new manager in," which is which would have been fine if this was like the previous regime of United, but now United have a new sporting ownership in place. So it becomes even slightly bit more tricky for them, because in the recent months they are trying to do the right thing. They are hiring the hierarchy managers, the hierarchy people in the hierarchy right now. Wilcox is in, Omar Berada is in. They are uh, they are doing very hard bargain with Newcastle United for Dan Ashworth, and that is the director of football that they have set their eyes on. And apparently, as far as the reports are suggesting, they are willing to wait out for him. It's not that they have told themselves that we need this guy as quickly as possible in inside the club. We want to go into next season with him on board. No, they are willing to wait it out, which is fine. But then you are also immediately chucking the next season out the window, because whatever you are planning for next season, it has to be a short term. Now, if you choose to stick with Ten Hag, that is again a choice that I can digest. But then I'm also a very reasonable Manchester United fan and understand that this is not an opinion many would share, especially the way things have ended this season. And but again, you have to keep in mind that as long as the director of football is not there, getting a managerial appointment in the long doesn't really seem like a viable option, because that is what United have done over the past 10 years, just not make good footballing decisions. And that's the one thing I want them to do. So if they were to bring in a new manager, we all have to understand that it would be a short choice, because if and when Dan Ashworth comes in, or if it's any other director of football, because that's what we know, that they want a director of football to come in and make these kind of things. When he comes in, I think if they don't like the manager that has already been in place, they'll be well within their rights. It would be part of their job to get a new manager in. So again, we'll start talking about what was the point of getting this previous manager in the first place. So
Mhm.
if they are to dismiss Ten Hag, which is fine if you want to do, the next manager will be a short term one. So again, you start asking questions. If you are a manager, you start asking
Yeah.
yourself, why would I go there at a place where they currently the system is very topsy turvy. There's quite a bit of chaos going on, and maybe I should wait for a while before something else happens. So yeah, that is what I would say. I think with United, things are very chaotic right now. I wouldn't mind personally continuing with Ten Hag, but I can also
Okay.
completely understand why everyone wants to move on from him. But yeah, I think it's a very mediocre season for United. People are saying this is the worst season. I don't think this is the worst season. Not for me. I think the worst season was the 21-22 season, where hope left the window, and that was personally for me the worst season, because I did not know where we went from there. There is a bit of an idea. There's a bit of hope, because the ownership has changed and they are looking more sporting wise. They are doing the right things on paper, at least for the time being. So I'm not that bothered by the mediocre finish that United have had, because we have been mediocre for a while. So if you have made peace with the fact that this is not a big club anymore, this is not a big team anymore, you can digest mediocre finishes. So I have,
Okay.
yeah, Ten Hag can continue and he cannot continue. But if he does go, there'll be a short-term solution only, because first of all, United needs director of football.
Yep. I was going to ask you whether you personally want Ten Hag to remain at Old Trafford, but you answered, Anshul. I said that you'd keep him for now at least. So yeah. I mean that's pretty much it. We've rattled through most of the teams and most of the things as part of this Premier League review. It's been fun, Anshuman. Thanks for joining, and people who are watching as well. Thanks for watching. Please do like and share the videos. Subscribe to Sports Kabri, and yeah, we'll be back with more Premier League content. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anshuman.
Bye bye, Rahul. Thank you.